back in my day, we had COVID for 5 years or whatever it's going to be.
2020, March 2020, it's like the world just took a sudden sharp left handbrake turn and we all went with it. I mean, my mum didn't do internet shopping full stop and it's all she does now. And I think it just propelled the gig economy.
I was not going to see my mum's last days. I mean, I just cannot imagine what that would be like. And I was...
So you just say bless you to Mrs. Noya. So.
Bless you, Lee says, good hear you.
InspirationNation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast, as always, with my good friends Ryan Boniface and Jose Noya, whose headphones are playing up right now. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Lee.
Really, really good. It's been such a long time.
Yeah, I know. We're excited for episode 152.2.
Yeah, I like it. I love that. So that's like a little soccer update.
Thank you those joining us on TikTok right now on a bonus Thursday. Normally we record on a Tuesday. We did record on a Tuesday, but we decided it wasn't up to our usual nation content, so we are here for our second stab at the week.
It was Tits Up Tuesday because we just
that it was. So we are on a bonus Thursday TikTok. Just follow Joe, Noya_InspirationNation. You'll get notification whenever he goes live. We put each and every podcast out live. Then, of course, we're across all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. And Twitter at ListenToIN, ListenToIN. There you go. Shilling done for the moment. So, Ryan, what for the second time are we going to talk about this week?
Not what we spoke about Tuesday, that's for sure. So, I've been reflecting a little bit. I was in the office today for work and I overheard a conversation from somebody that said it's 2 years next month since the big vid started, big COVID.
Wow,
it's 2 years.
Well, I know month. I knew that, but I didn't really think.
That's it, and that is exactly it. It's 2 years next month. I don't want to keep dragging that point out, but I still feel like I'm 24. Because I was 24 when it happened, and it almost feels like life hit that pause button and everything kind of stopped, and it hasn't really kind of got started again. I don't want to compare it to any kind of big worldwide issues, maybe like a world war or whatever, because people have definitely felt like that from those, of course. But this is definitely my generation's. Back in my day, we had COVID for 5 years or whatever it's going to be. But it made me kind of think about where would we be, us individually, the world, whatever, where would we be if it didn't happen? Get out your parallel universe thoughts, and in a world where COVID doesn't happen, it doesn't come to fruition, where do we think, personally, professionally, or whatever, where would we be? And a lot of people, and we were quite lucky here as a three, a lot of people kind of were made redundant or lost their jobs or had their lives turned upside down, and a lot of things changed. But also, by contrast, if COVID didn't happen, those same things would have happened to another group of people. Right. So I'm not saying that that's fate's way of working it through to whoever it wants to, but some people could have been really, really close to not keeping up their mortgage payments, and all of a sudden COVID happens and they had a 3 to 6 month break, which a lot of banks did offer, and then all of a sudden they managed to recoup a lot of money, save up a lot of money, didn't lose their job, and they're now back on track. There will be people that benefited from COVID, right? But I'm just interested in your guys' thoughts on kind of, as a society, where we would be. The big talking point in our country would still probably be Brexit. Did we get it right? Is the decision right? And a lot of the things that we're struggling to deal with over here, like the fuel crisis at the mid to end point of last year, and there were some food shortages around the same time, were preliminary put down to COVID being the issue. But, was it really? Would we know that? And I think it's just a bit more of a reflection episode on maybe where we would be as people. Because as I say, job wise, we will do the same job. We'll work for the same companies. Not much has really changed for us over these 2 years, right? I kind of got promoted, but I got promoted before COVID technically started. So I'm not going to count that. No, my position hasn't really changed. But yeah, that's kind of where what I kind of want to reflect on, because a lot of it is seeing COVID as a negative thing, and for the most part, 100% it is. For the most part, it is. It's prohibited people going out. It's had detrimental effects to mental health. Obviously, hundreds of thousands of people have died just in our country. But more than that, kind of, has there been effect to relationships that you guys have had? Have you made new relationships with people that you wouldn't have had before? Is there anything you can look back on in 10 years' time when this is a thing of the past and say, you know what, I wouldn't be where I am in a good way, maybe, or in a certain way because of what happened in 2020 to 2022, hopefully, and nothing further. So yeah, I kind of want to throw that out there.
Very interesting concept. I like it because it, for a multitude of reasons, some things are be carried on as is, but March, 2019? 2020. March 2020, it's like the world just took a sudden, sharp left handbrake turn and we all went with it.
Yeah.
And everything got thrown up in the air and it's all starting to settle down. I still, we've done a few reflection episodes on this, but I still remember all the talk about lockdown being needed. We no idea about COVID, how severe it could or couldn't be, other than the fact that it was spreading like wildfire at the time. We needed this effective shutdown of the entire country for 3 weeks, which was just complete. It still feels a little bit surreal now. I know things are slightly different now, but surreal that I was starting around here, driving somewhere the other day and going near one of the major airports. It's either Gatwick or Heathrow. I was on the M25 and there were like 10 overlapping contrails in the sky. And for whatever reason, it made me think about that, 3 weeks that became 3 or 6 months or whatever, that time period was, where I'd open window at the front of my house and there would not be a noise. Now, I live one street back from the main road. I'm underneath part of the loop that Gatwick has where planes fly around, so they're always going in the sky. I'm making it sound like a fantastic place to live for noise, but there's background noise. It's not horrendous, but it's there. But I could open my window and there wouldn't be a sound, literally not a sound, because no one was travelling. And it still feels a bit surreal if we've got that back to normal a bit now with where we are. But you say, Ryan, we suddenly found ourselves at home. I remember having a conversation with you, Joe, about, we'll just go back to normally next time. And you were like, no, it's not. There'll be a new normal, but it's not going to go back to how it was, which is absolutely the case. Huge increase in this that we're doing now. We were already doing it for the podcast, but video technology for speaking to each other, but it still wasn't like it is now. And clearly it wasn't, because all the IT companies suddenly spent all their resources into beefing up their video technology to the point that it's so woven into the fabric of our lives now, because it's so available for everything. So kind of interaction, how we deal with people through necessity, we had to do certain things, and some of that hasn't gone away. Little stupid things. Amazon. So Amazon's been around for ages in terms of delivery thing. And I was aware of it, but it wouldn't be my go-to for buying stuff. I'd still go to the shop or order certain things online from a shop or click and collect or whatever it is. But then once we couldn't go out, Amazon became the thing, and initially a necessity. Now Amazon is the first place I go anytime I need anything is it on Amazon, and that wasn't my go-to beforehand. And I know that's small, but I think that's the case for a lot of people. I mean, my mum didn't do internet shopping full stop, and it's all she does now, everything. And that whole industry around the drivers, the infrastructure for the drivers, the maintenance network for the vehicles, insurance stuff that sits behind it, warehouses, the jobs that sit there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs people are doing now that would not have existed in that volume because of it. And I think it just propelled the gig economy. So this is where people, you get jobs sent to you rather than having 9 to 5 hours, and in some of them you can pick up as many as you want, on others you commit to a number of hours, like things are always there. But Amazon, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, blah, 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 all of that stuff has just we were already on a path, but it just went like that. And it's not gone, from what I can see, it's not gone back. And I've read some articles talking about it that, food deliveries as opposed to going out to restaurants went through the roof. And actually, it hasn't settled back down to those volumes. People have kind of integrated that with a part of their life now because they're used to doing that. And then restaurants have kept that going as a core part of business. One of my, we've talked about it off air, but I've got a family member who runs, well, it's a bakery, but a huge part of his income stream is deliveries, which I don't think 5 years ago, when you went into it, you'd have thought of that being the thing, but it's kind of changed. And then on a bigger scale, I'll stop in a minute and let someone else talk, but I think it's a high street as well. So, the high streets have changed dramatically, partly because of not being able to go out, shops not being able to sustain it, everything else like that. But this wasn't new. There was already news stories a year, 2 years before COVID about the death of the high street. I just think 5 to 10 years of social change happened in like a year. It just escalated everything. And we're now where, as a society, we're largely where we would have been in 2025, 2030, only it's 2022 because we've been forced to adapt quickly. Yeah. And I think we'd still have the slow death of the high street, so to speak. I'm a big fan of going out to the high street, by the way, but, it's just, that's the way things are going. But I think that would have still been on a slow decline. You're slowly getting to move up. I mean, working from home like it is now for people in jobs that can sustain it, still would probably be a should we, shouldn't we, maybe we'll give it a go, let's dip our toe in and try it out sort of thing, rather than now it's almost, how do you make work in the office a sometimes thing while everyone's at home? So there's all these changes that have happened, I think, that just wouldn't have, and we'd be a lot further down the progression route to these things that definitely would have happened. That's my society thing. I could do a personal thing in a minute, but I'll probably let someone else speak.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think just for some context, Ozark season 3 came out in March 2020. I've not got to season 3 yet, but I've started. Tiger King, that was peak start of pandemic, right? Tiger King, and that feels like an eternity ago, but it's only 2 years. I've tried to look at films.
That's because of how much has changed in that time.
Yeah, I've tried to look at films that were released in March 2020, and Peter Rabbit 2. There was a Mulan remake, I think.
All top of my viewing list. All top of my list.
The Weeknd was number 1 in the UK with Blinding Lights. If you've ever heard that song, that's 2 years ago. That's a big jump in time, and a lot of people had to put their lives on hold. And they, we all went home from work, and we were like, "Oh, it'll only be 3 months. We'll be back." We're not back, not really. And it's been like 24 months.
And they just announced today, didn't they, that they're going to release, or was it yesterday or something, all the restrictions. So that has been, he said that's 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's been, they've been up and down. They've been far more severe. They've been less severe. It's been a bit of a, not a bumpy ride, but an up and down ride. But there's been some sort of rule about it in place for 2 years now. That's a hell of a long time.
Yeah. And Joe, I will come to you in a second. But something we were discussing at work today in the office was that people think that that's too soon. A lot of people think that that's too soon. And don't get me wrong, you have to assess the threat that you think to yourself at the time, right? But 2 years ago, I came onto this podcast and I said, guys, I've seen the future. We're going to be locked down for pretty much 2 years. You tell me, shut up, that's a joke. There's no way the world can just stop for 2 years. I can actually picture those words coming out of Lee's mouth. There's no way the world will be able to stop for 2 years. Yet here we are. But yes, Joe, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I loved all you said. I think I agree with it. And I don't necessarily think we stopped. I just think we adapted. I just think we just changed very, very quickly. I think we did stop for a bit, and then it went right bang. We need to get on with it. And it was a massive thrust from everybody, like even us, right on the podcast. Because I want to talk about personal experience. I know you talk about how the world is, but I think even looking at this podcast, we were sitting in Lee's front room. We talked about it before, and we're recording these episodes in the front room. And that's why I love this podcast.
They made me drive 2 hours to record these podcasts.
Right. 2 hours, right?
The pleasure of driving 2 hours.
to get some Marks and Spencer's pizza from Lee was worth it.
Just imagine this, Ryan, right? You said, you want to re-record? I'll have a 2 hours trip. That's 4 hours of driving. You just say. And that's what I mean. It's like, this is amazing. I think, yes, it's the really sad bits have come out of it. There's been, like you said, definitely. But in terms of the podcast, I think it's been good for us. It gives us flexibility. We could go back to Leeds at some point and do it. But really, this is really convenient, you know? It's so convenient. It's so easy. It's just like, oh, we're going to do a podcast episode. Bang, here we go. Get onto Zoom. Other things are available, like whatever, Teams and all that sort of stuff.
I think we streamlined life a bit.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's made things a lot more efficient. I mean, think about our workplaces. You know, like you said, you know, people struggle to get rooms to have meetings in. No longer that's a problem. Boom, you don't have a meeting. You just have it on your Teams. It's just the amount of traveling that's been cut down, especially myself personally. I don't do half as much traveling, you know. And obviously when the restrictions are going, I think there is going to be a hybrid way of working. It's going to be, me personally, I think it's going to be, you know, might be 2 days in the office, 3 at home. Who knows? In fact, I might be, even now I'm doing training, people are home working. They're not even in the office. They won't be in the office because they're home workers. And that's enabled businesses to actually employ people who are geographically not in the vicinity. So it allows a big pool of skills.
Easy for you to say, Joe.
What's that?
I said easy for you to say, Joe.
Geographically. I said
Exactly.
But what I suppose, so I love this podcast because this podcast has actually been a diary of the pandemic, essentially.
It's like a time capsule.
Well, yeah, will be like I think it was 6 months prior to the pandemic that we started, or something like that, was it? We 2.5 years, maybe?
No, we're 3 years in about 3 weeks.
So
yeah, we were just over a year in.
A year before, and we've carried on. I haven't missed one. We had a little blip in the middle. We missed one. We had a little episode with Lee, did brilliantly, but literally been doing podcast recordings, and now, you know, you can all look back on the podcast, listen back, watch back, and to how we were talking about those times and what was going to be happening, what we thought might be happening, and now we're coming to this place where, like Lee said and you said, that everything's going to be at the end of the month. Everything's lifted. What's the impact going to be? I think there'll be a hybrid way of working. We want to go back to going back to the office full time. I think some businesses have said we're not going back. People are staying at home. So it just depends on what the business need is, what the resources. But on a personal note, you know, it's been tough. How's it affected my relationships? I suppose it's a good question. I think you mentioned that, Ryan. I've had to make more of an effort.
It's been negative for you, is what you're saying.
Sorry?
It's been negative for you, is what you're saying.
I love that. No, but it's made you have to do like reach outs. You know, like if
whatever you kids are calling it these days, Joe.
Yeah, reach outs, all that. But there's been some downsides, clearly, you know, for me personally, because when my mum was not very well, I couldn't go and see her until the last sort of moments. That was difficult. You know, when I went to go and see my mum, you know, we've had 2 bouts of COVID in my household. I couldn't go and see her because of risk of, you know, at home carrying it. So, you know, a lot of other people have faced that. I mean, in the first pandemic, you know, people were passing away and they couldn't actually go and see them because they were so strict. I was quite lucky because they knew that, you know, it was near the end of life, that even with there was COVID, I was allowed to visit, provided I could show a negative test. So we got more used to being able to sort of manage it. But I do feel for those people that weren't able to visit their loved ones. I mean, that I can't imagine that personally. On my level, like to think I was not better to see my mum's last days. I mean, I just cannot imagine what that would be like. And I'm sort of bringing it down a little bit, but it's just like that seriousness of that. And when I think back, I think that's really heavy. So there's the good, there's not so good. And personally, I think I've grown differently. I don't know I think I've grown quicker. I've had to adapt a lot more to things like using technology and all that. So there's been good things, and I've had to make more effort. So for me, I think it's been some challenges, but overall, I think it's been a good thing to test my resilience about change. And I don't really like change, and I have to push myself for change. I've seen a lot of change in businesses and my job. We've done change. You know, events have happened which have been really challenging for me, but overall, I think I've grown a lot, and I think there's still more to come. So yeah, that's my two pennies worth. So I'm going to throw it back to you guys.
So
can you just say bless you to Mrs. Noya for me, please, Joe?
Bless you, Lee says. Could hear you.
Sorry.
I could hear.
So
Literal weed outside. Oh, sorry.
That's my daughter coming in.
Love it all.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Ryan. Go
what I want to kind of
Sorry.
touch on next is that, do we think, as a passing question, that things will go back in any aspect to how they were before? So to give a bit of an analogy to this, I assume we've all seen the Simpsons movie. They had the big dome chucked over the town, and you not seen the Simpsons movie?
Oh, Joe, get it on the list. My God.
Wow. They chuck a big dome over the town and life goes on around them. And I seem to remember a scene when the dome lifted where they had to reintegrate themselves into life, right? And similarly, we've all seen the Marvel films, right? And the big click happened, and
the snap, thank you.
The snap. Sorry, the snap.
My God.
And I knew that would wind Lee up. And half the world just disappeared, right? And don't get me wrong, this is a serious conversation, but there are some comparisons to that in the sense that people had a big change, worldwide, huge change, and they had to get on with their life without those people, without those norms. You know, the amount of businesses that would have failed as a result of that. If you were to imagine that happened in our universe and in real life, what effect would that have on the planet if half the people just ceased to exist, and then 5 years later they suddenly all re-existed? How easy would it be to reintegrate back into life if you're, from either side? You've bought a house or somebody that disappeared, and all of a sudden you're in the bath one day and they appear on the toilet next to you.
Oh my God, that would be so weird, wouldn't it? That would be so weird.
So, there is a part of me that thinks that life will naturally, over the next 50 years or so, fall back to the normality that we saw in 2019, albeit with some technological changes and improvements and differences. But there's another part of me that says that will never, ever happen. And we'll never go back to that.
It's more the latter, but it's an evolved. So things, the genie is out the bottle on work-life balance, working at home. 4-day working week stuff's being pushed now, which again, what isn't new, it's been talked about 3, 4, 5 years ago.
European countries have been doing it.
Escalated a lot quicker than it ever would have. But a lot of things are, there's coffee shops now have people in them. They didn't have people in them a year ago. Bars, restaurants, stuff like that. Again, tables are more adapted. People are much more, we're comfortable. You stay in your seat more than get around and be everywhere like you used to so much. I've noticed that a little bit with people, but all of that stuff is opening back up again, going out to the shop, socialising with people. We're starting to go back towards it. It's still lesser volumes that may or may not change. You've got a generation now who've grown up with, already there was a lot of contact through online rather than face to face anyway, and then that just got escalated. Will that become more of a comfortable thing for people? So a lot of elements have come back in and are still coming back in. I just think even little things like when I go to the pub now, I order my app. I don't go to the bar. Now, this app also exists beforehand. I just never used it because that's what I was used to doing. And I've got a new use to doing. So there's little adaptations and things that have come in. So I don't think we'll ever go back because I don't think there is any going back. Mm-hmm. But I think we also won't be as restricted. So the things people want to do will come back in varying volumes. And I say the biggest bit is going out for a coffee, going out for dinner, going to the cinema, whatever that, whatever those sort of things are. But I think, and maybe even arguably a bit more of that, as you referenced it earlier, Joe, like work-life balance. For me, I would always, I'm a little bit of a workaholic, so to speak. Or and my working hours generally were 8 to 6 every day, give or take a bit extra at start, bit at the end. It's still pretty much the same now. I just don't have an hour travel forward on the start and finish. Give a lot of thumbs up there, Joe. Is that behind the camera?
So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to HR 04826, sending you hearts, sending you love, Lee.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the love on TikTok.
Yeah, so I just given them a thumbs up because they can only see me, so I just wanted to give them a thumbs up saying thank you for that. I didn't want to interrupt your flow because it was really good.
No, it's good. I think that's where it is. And I know jumping back a question, but I did the big society thing on a personal bit. And again, the reason we're doing this podcast is we challenge ourselves on personal growth. And I think I would have grown in whatever way, but I've definitely gone in a direction on, I'm doing a lot of talking at the moment around mindfulness stuff and appreciation for things I've got. And I think I'm in a happier place because I'm just more appreciative having gone through what I went through. And like you guys said, I count myself as very, very lucky in terms of the impact to me. I had parents who got very, very ill, about as close as could have been without it being fatal for them. So there's impact in the family of friends and that were impacted. But for me personally, I didn't know when they had it as bad as other people did. And I know, I'm not saying it was all a great thing because it didn't happen. Obviously, it didn't better for everyone. But for me, it's just because of that, seeing what happened to other people, realising how lucky I was, I think, it's just given me a real appreciation for what I do have and what's around me and enjoying the small things in life and being more in the moment. And I think that it put me on that path, and it's been a quick journey because of it as well. I'm in a relationship that I definitely wouldn't have been if it wasn't for COVID. It started during COVID, situations of how the world was allowed that to happen. Never would have been before. So, dramatic change in life that when you look at that whole, what was the film? Sliding Doors, where you've got someone who goes through a door and doesn't, and life goes in two different directions. And that's a fundamental event that happened 18 months into COVID. So I can say that, there's no way the stars have aligned in the same way. So, hugely different person. Personally, I think good place. Obviously, big things happening in life, and I'm in a society that I think we've moved on quicker than we ever would have.
I think my life was rid of distractions. I still do all the things that I did before, but I think the hubbub of life and growing up was silenced with COVID for me, and I kind of lost those distractions, and I could just focus on work for the most part, and Netflix in the evenings.
Just to say, guys, I am going off cam for a second, but carry on without me.
Okay.
Hi. Carry on, fine.
That's it's about now that I think I'd be looking to wrap up. I think it's just important that no matter what's happened to you, with you, for you, around you, or about you, these last 2 years don't define you. They're probably two of what I'm going to imagine is 60 to 70 plus years. So, there's still so much time in life to do what you wanted to do. And yeah, I mean, you get to decide now what's normal. There's jobs that now offer permanent working from home, as we've discussed, or permanently working in the office, or a hybrid system. You now have more flexibility now in the jobs you wish to go for, and even the sectors you wish to go for. Like there's almost as if everybody got a free reset. Did you like what you did? No. Can I get out and get into something new? Yes. Then I can go. And I think that's important that people got that reset. And you know, in some ways, we're quite lucky that reset happened. Maybe we didn't want it, maybe we did. But I think a lot of people have benefited in the same way that unfortunately a lot of people suffered, for want of a better word. So I think just reminding yourself that if you haven't had a good couple of years, that, you know, life does go on and you will find your path. And if you've had a good couple of years, be thankful that it's happened in your lifetime, so that you've been the one to benefit, rather than being maybe our children or our children's children and going, oh, I hate my job, I wish I had a pandemic that could mean that I could change and do something new. It's all about being grateful and making the most of your situation, I think. But
Right.
yeah, now Lee's disappeared. I don't know who's going to win the show.
Well, he better come back. Well, I got to say, I don't know where he's going, but just to sort of build on your point, I really like that thing about, you know, people. This is now brought to a head that you can change. Sometimes you have to force change, but you can always change. There's always an opportunity for you to change. And the other thing I saw is, like, do you remind me of this person, like, where people had really difficult times? And I think there was care workers in homes that were being forced to have the vaccine, and there's this lady who didn't want to have it. She'd had COVID, so she had antibodies, but they still wanted to have the vaccine anyway. They sacked her. Then she got a job lorry driving, and then they said they're not going to force people to have the vaccines. And so, but she got a job as a lorry driver. She loves it. I said, would you go back? Well, I don't really think I will, because now I found this other job and I really enjoy it. So lost to the care system, but lorry driving, right? So, you know, sometimes these things happen and you don't agree with them, Ryan. I absolutely agree. Sometimes you don't agree with what's happening, but sometimes it happens and you evolve and it makes you change. It makes you become better. It makes you become stronger, even through the struggle. It's the struggles that make us stronger. And even at the time you think, oh, I'm really struggling, I don't like this at all. Well, you getting through it and adapting and making the best of it and being, like what Lee said and you said about making the most of it, being grateful for what you have, you can make it through and you can be a better version of yourself. It's all about personal growth, but also little everyday things we talk about, not just climbing mountains, that massive mountain of distance, but those everyday little things to just do it the best you can every single day. You know, make your bed, do little things well, do a little change that you've done. Make sure you do those little jobs that you've been putting off, those little things, don't put them off and get them done. So it makes you feel, you get that little rush of dopamine that you've done those little jobs and done your best every day. And you'll find that those little wins will add up to big wins over time. So yeah, Ryan, what a great point. You really made me think about that. So thank you for that. And Lee's back, look.
I'm back, everyone. I'm back. The ship is being steered again.
I didn't know how we were going to end the podcast. I forgot all the Joe's handles and all sorts. I was like, what am I going to do?
What, Ryan, we just handled it, mate. You'd have helped in style. You've been absolutely fine.
But
you're doing good.
Yeah, that's it. I think we're up to takeaways in that now, or a little advertisement pitch if you're doing it, Lee, or whatever.
Yeah, very, very quickly, I do. So thank you, everyone, supporting us. Head over to inspirationnation.org.uk, Inspiration Nation store, details coaching service, sign up for Joe's newsletter. Very topical, I've got here. I was going to put it on earlier. Inspiration Nation face mask, still available alongside mugs. Thank you, Ryan. Hoodies. Thank you, Joe. And all that good stuff. And again, social media at listen to IN, listen TOIN, and just put Jose Noya Inspiration Nation search engine and you will find all sorts of Joe going on.
I'm just thinking, just quickly, that face masks now, if this all goes, it might become like collectible.
Probably not.
I'll keep this just in case, but I think you're probably right, Ryan.
The Inspiration Nation podcast mask will become collectible, limited edition.
We'll turn it into an NFT.
Yeah. There you go, right? Because they will, once people, once the world starts wearing face masks, this stuff is going to be collectible. Remember that time, that 2-year stint where all this stuff that's created by the pandemic, all that stuff, mark my words, they will be collectible. They will be collectible. Natural flow test, again, mark my words, if they start getting rid of them, they're collectible. There you go. In 20 years' time.
After that great advice, give us some takeaways and I'll count us down.
Go on. Oh, we do takeaways. Takeaways, quick then.
I feel we've said it before, but don't be so hard on yourself.
It's okay. It's good. Yeah, I agree with that. Brilliant. Lee?
Appreciate the moment.
Appreciate the moment. And mine is just do your best every single day, even those little tasks. Do your best at it. That's mine. You'll get through it. Push through the struggle. Go.
And on that note, 3, 2, 1.
Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
Later. So I want to know now, what's your biggest takeaway? Don't forget to hashtag it with Inspiration Nation in the comments below, and make sure you commit to action. Right, thank you for checking it out. So don't forget to catch all our other Inspiration Nation podcast episodes right over here. So go check them out. And also, don't forget to subscribe, because that will tell you when your next video goes live by you hitting that amazing bell. So until next time, it's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you right over there.